how is it that, what are the techniques you have to motivate people? Because you have a very strong psychological background and a grounding. What are the ways that people can motivate people in offices?
Well, I think one thing is, doctor, you need to, it's basically like this, I would say in an office space, there could be, let's say, about uh, 10 to 20% of people who are doing their dream job, or this is what they exactly wanted to do. Then you'll have some individuals who are still confused. Okay, I'm just trying out certain things and I'm just trying to see whether this works for me. And there are another set of individuals who got no choice at all. I mean, this is what I'm left with. So when it comes to those set of individuals, let's say the set of individuals who are doing this, oh my God, like for the sake of doing this, or this is paying my bills or whatever. I think I have actually come across all these different types of individuals who are in workforce. And it's very easy to deal with the first percentage because, they love what they do. So I don't think you need to actually exercise motivation, because every day when you wake up, you don't feel like taking a cow to slaughter. So you love your work, you love walking into your workplace, you love what you do, like every day it's like brand new experiences. Then you have the ones who are experimenting. So that's also all right, because they're just trying to figure out what really fits them. So then it's about like trying to help. I mean, it's about helping them to understand what really drives them, and where they really need to focus their life on. And then the toughest group would be the ones who have zero motivation of waking up every day and doing this particular job. So that's the toughest lot. So I think, and also something, doctor, we need to realize is that our human mindset is always very much negativity biased. We always get triggered by negative news. If someone says, my results 2 A's and 1B, our next question would always be, what's the B for? And if we speak about a plane crash, next question we would think is that how many died, or, like that. So it's always very much negativity bias. So maybe in your workplace, there are so many things that you like, or, things that you can improve, but then your focus will always be on, the things that you absolutely dislike. That will be much more. So therefore, it's about actually, again, very individually, making people sit down and think about what's good in this job. Or as, let's say, taking from your teammates, looking at your boss, looking at what are the other benefits, looking at what are you actually learning. Let's say I have some people who have said, I have a toxic boss. Then, sometimes we have actually come into the conclusion that, it's sometimes good to have a toxic boss, so you'll know that what kind of a boss you should not be also in life. So it's always about turning these things. And also there's this one thing, I mean, if I have time, I'll tell you. One time I was watching one of Shah Rukh Khan's interviews, and which was done by a law student at Yale University. And there the student tells Shah Rukh, and then say that, sir, I absolutely love poetry. I love writing. I can write beautiful things. But the thing is, unfortunately, that will not bring bread and butter to my family. So I write this, legal documents. I do these, I draft these things. I find no pleasure. Can you tell me how I can go about in life? Because I have zero motivation. Then Shah Rukh says, quite some time ago, of course, he says that, my passion is towards, let's say, bringing technology into Hindi film industry. But unfortunately, I don't have a big capital to do so. So therefore, I go and dance at weddings. I go for parties and this and that. I take money. I endorse brands which I don't believe in. I do movies I know they are really bad. Because, at the end of the day, in back of my mind, I know where I want to get to. So this is what I'm using as fuel to actually, fire up my dream. So sometimes in life, we are always not very fortunate to do what we absolutely love. But in that process also, it's something that you can always keep your dream alive in your mindset, that I'm doing this thing. I know that I don't enjoy much, but this is actually giving me the fuel to actually do what I really want to do someday in life.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to yet another MBA Diary webinar session. Today, we are joining you with our 151st guest speaker, who is also a returning speaker. Allow me to quickly introduce our amazing personality for this evening, Ms. Rasini Bandara. She is an international member of the American Psychological Association. She holds an MSc in Applied Psychology from Coventry University, UK, and a BSc in Psychology from Gurney American University. Currently, she is reading for her PhD in Psychology from the same institution. She has an advanced diploma in counseling psychology from the London School of Science and Technology, UK. Rasini completed her postgraduate internship at the Chitra Lane School for Special Needs Children and her undergraduate internships at Victoria Home for Incurables and the Salvation Army. Since 2013, she has been a visiting lecturer for the Rhodes Scholarship Program, USA and Canada by Abercrombie and Kent Private Limited. In 2022, the World Women Leadership Congress and CMO Asia honored her with the award Sri Lanka's Women Leader for her contribution to society in the field of mental health. Rasini is an international well-being consultant for ITF, International Transport Federation. She has conducted international trainer programs on mental well-being for maritime academics, faculty members, and seafarers in Croatia, South Africa, Vietnam, Malaysia, Egypt, the Philippines, and Indonesia. Locally, she has conducted programs on emotional intelligence, mental wellness, and personality development for NTB Bank, Haley's Consumer, People's Bank, Sampath Bank, HSBC, Atlas Asiata, Haley's Advantis, IFS, MAS Holdings, Dialogue, Hilla Clothing, Cargill's PLC, and others. She is a non-executive director at Mind Hills Private Limited and also the president of the Rotary Club of Colombo Midtown for the year 2024-2025. So with this, I would like to welcome Rasini to talk about how to improve your performance at office. Rasini, over to you.
Hi, Ruth. Thank you so much. Thank you, APIIT, and especially Dr. Rohan Tatakorala for your kind invitation. I might have said some good stuff, hence coming back on the program, and glad to be here talking to all of you. So a very interesting topic, how to improve your performance at office. I must say that giving a small start to this topic and conversation, a lot of people whom I have come across when I conduct workshops and things, and always have told me that, they always try and always struggle to keep their personal life and professional life separately. But something that we need to really understand is that there is a very fine line making these two apart. But the thing is, they are pretty much overlapping all the time. So in life, we always call it that it's no longer work-life balance. It's now something we call as work-life harmony, because these two things needs to have a beautiful harmony in order for an individual to be very productive. So when it comes to improving your performance at office, that has a lot to do with how you look after yourself, how you look after your relationships and all those things in your personal life as well, or in your home front as well. So that's what I say, that these two things are things that you need to really, really look into, because there's no way, no matter how much you struggle or work hard, if things are not doing so well, so great at your home front, that will have a very negative effect into your performance. And vice versa. If you're not doing so well in your workplace, of course, you'll take all that stress back to your home front as well. That will impact your personal relationships also. So I think this is something that I really wanted to mention fundamentally, that in order for someone to improve their performance, it's pretty much about their overall well-being as an individual, right? So how much of importance you give your work, at the same time, all the other things that you do in your life, that you maintain a proper balance. So especially if we look at the workplace, I would say that, I'm someone who does a lot of work around the topic of EQ. That's emotional quotient, or as we call it, emotional intelligence. And this is a very significant area. And at the same time, I would say nowadays, multicultural organizations, multinationals, they always focus on looking at individuals, let's say, for example, recruiting individuals who are very high in terms of their EQ. So earlier, we would give a lot of priority to intelligence. So, of course, over the years of going to university, school, and everything, and doing all these courses and stuff, and all the knowledge that you gather, so that's your intelligence. But then more than any of those, I think what actually helps an individual to deal with work, and at the same time deal with different individuals at a workplace, that you need to have your level of EQ. And now there is a new kid on the block as well, and that's CQ, cultural quotient. So how sensitive you are to organizational cultures, because if you take every organization, it's very different. And the work culture is very different. Individuals are very different. How the management works, that's very different. So sometimes people get into these culture shocks. Culture shocks will not only happen just by you going from a country to another country, or else from one particular area, you go to live in another area. It doesn't happen only with that, but it happens with organizations as well. So how well individuals can build up this adaptability for certain cultures, and at the same time, how sensitive you are to other people's faiths and beliefs and all those things, because those things are issues nowadays as well. So very importantly, I think, as, let's say, employees of different organizations, you definitely should work on your EQ, that's your people skills, and then, of course, the CQ element. So these two things, I think, is a must to have. I would say that it's always very challenging, especially emotional intelligence, because no one can ever say I'm 100% emotionally intelligent. It's always something that you need to work on a daily basis, because there are so many things that happens around us that will make our emotional intelligence fly right out of the window. So you need to always bring it back. You need to work on it on daily basis. And at the same time, it actually, when you master EQ, it helps you a lot with all the other things that you have to handle and manage in your professional life. So especially, I would say, first thing, in order to improve your performance at workplace, there should be a very good harmony and a very good work-life balance. And in here, I think people also should realize that, I know that some individuals have always said that, I'm a workaholic, I love working, and I do not put a stop to it and all those things. But we need to also understand that, there should always be a starting time and there should always be a finishing time, where mostly, I would say, professional IT professionals really struggle with this factor of when to stop. But we need to really understand when to stop, because, sometimes overworking is also something that we recognize as a maladaptive way of dealing with stress or coping with stress, that you put in a lot of focus into work, and you avoid your home front and your other relationships. Time should be investing in your workouts and all those things. So self-care is very limited, when people overwork. So you need to know, I think that is number one. If you need to improve your performance at workplace, at your office premises, then of course, one thing is that you need to have a very healthy harmony, a very healthy balance between your work life and then your personal life. So then that is one thing. So you need to know when to start and when to stop. Because at the end of the day, all of us human beings need me time and my time. So therefore, that is number one. Then, of course, focusing on your taking care, looking after your physical well-being, looking after your mental well-being, and then looking after your social well-being. So all these three elements are very important. Physical well-being, I will not go into lengthier details, but then I will roughly mention. So I would say eating right, eating healthy, then of course exercises, because sometimes I always empower this factor of people need to really invest in workouts. The reason is that when you exercise, it releases endorphins that will directly attack cortisol, that's your stress hormones. So whatever the work related stress that you go through, exercise is one very healthier way of dealing with it. So therefore, and it's a very healthier way of venting as well. So because most of the time we struggle a lot, with the issues like anger or things like that, especially when you work with people, because people bring different attitudes to the table. So sometimes you need to have a lot of tolerance. And sometimes in order to protect imaginary peace, we always lose a little bit of ourselves. So sometimes we really want to react, but then we stop ourselves. Sometimes we really want to give 2 cents, but then we stop ourselves. So make sure that you always do invest in things like exercises, then a very good sleep, because of course, when you get a very good sleep, that's going to actually have a very stronger impact on your, let's say, on your cognitive skill. That's your thinking, reasoning, decision making, problem solving, critical thinking, all of those things. So whenever you start losing sleep, if you ever start losing sleep, then of course that's gonna impact all those things. So therefore, I think in order for you to have a very focused and a very, would say, a mind that you can really concentrate well for your work, then of course a very good sleep is highly essential. And then, of course, I would say these things for your physical well-being. Then, of course, when it comes to your mental well-being, I think again, if you take abroad, organizations really promote and empower individuals to actually seek therapy. It's a mandatory thing that you visit your therapist. It's very normalized in other countries, but then I think it's very how things are happening in Sri Lanka now. It's actually getting very healthier, because I personally work as a counselor for many organizations. So I see that how these things, how well organizations are, embracing these kind of practices, and they really encourage their employees to seek therapy, seek support, because this is something again very normal. Because if we fall sick, we would not think twice to reach out to a doctor, but then we still think very less about the fact that we should be reaching out to someone to talk about our issues as well. Because sometimes what happens is, when you have certain issues and you have certain struggles in your workplace, people mostly try to bottle it up, because they think that if I go home and talk about these kind of things, my home front people will not understand, and they have their own issues as well. And if I go and say these things, that's going to be again they're going to be overloaded with things. So I think because of this reason, a lot of people struggle alone. So in situations like this can bottle up, and actually later on people can get into situations like burnout. And if you go into burnout, then that's a problem, because stress is something that is normal. It's not a mental illness, but things like depression, anxiety disorders, and when burnout, they're actually mental illnesses. So then you have to be very mindful of looking after your mind. So you have to really keep it very hygiene. So therefore, time to time, you need to take this garbage out. So therefore, I think people need to be very accountable on looking after their mental well-being as well. And then, of course, in your social well-being, that means your relationships. I mean, how you have your relationships with your, let's say, your boss, your immediate, your supervisor, or else, let's say your team members, all of these things. So in this situation, I think one way to absolutely improve your performance at office is actually when you have very healthy level of communication. I think that's a must. So therefore, so in an organization also, I would say, if you, let's say you're in a leadership position and you are a team leader, and it's, I think, your responsibility to actually have psychological safety maintained in your team. Or else if you are an organization head, then of course it's up to you to maintain psychological safety in your organization, where people are given the opportunity to learn and to unlearn. In this process, we need to always understand that we have a lot of learning to do, at the same time a lot of unlearning to do. We need to really adopt to certain change as well in organizations. And I would say that, adaptability is the key. And animals who adopt to change are the ones who survive. Darwin said it. And that's another thing. And then at the same time, also, like when you disagree on something, I think you should have a very healthier space to openly talk about those disagreements. And at the same time, if you find something not so right in the organization, you should be able to voice it out. So all these things, I think it's always about very clear and very healthy communication. It's always about how you take in feedback as well. It's always about, you continuously asking for feedback and, evaluate your work. I think we always need to be very humble about wanting to know that what we need to improve. And it's always not about good news, but it's always about, there are so many things that we do not know. So there's a lot of learning to do. So therefore, please always have yourself very open to constructive criticism, at the same time, very open to learn things. And then know that what are the areas that you really need to improve. So this open mindset is absolutely necessary, no matter how little the person you are, person you have to learn from, or no matter how, with regarding seniority, it could be a very senior employee or a colleague, or it can be a very junior colleague. But still, if you feel like I need to learn something from this person, or else I want to get like honest feedback of how I did or how I handled this situation, I think it's always very healthy when you have a mindset like this, right? So communication when it comes to relationships is a must. I mean, especially when it comes to your office space as well. At the same time, let's say if you're struggling with something, one thing that in many situations, many organizations, but something I've witnessed is that in situations where you have to say no, and in situations where you need to ask for help, people always think that, oh, I lack personality, or else I lack character, or else what if they see me as someone who's weaker, someone who cannot even handle things. But then actually, honestly, it shows a great deal of courage that you're really asking for help, because it takes a lot for someone to ask for help. It takes a lot for someone to admit the fact that you don't know it, and then show the interest that you really want to learn it. So I think that shows great deal of accountability. So therefore, I think that's also another thing, whereas you constantly be very open to new learning experiences and things, and you always maintain very healthy level of communication. I think when you're struggling with something, when there's an issue in your life, then you should be always communicating that. And at the same time, I think you should always have that space open for other people also to ask and learn things from you as well. So this is, I think, one of the most important things when it comes to improving your performance. So looking after your physical health, looking after your mental health, and then at the same time looking after your relationships, whether it's in office space or whether it's your home front. I think very clear conversations, very clear communication will definitely help you to improve things better, because you're not suffering silently. You're actually being very vocal about issues and struggles. So I think that really opens up the space for you to improve yourself much more. And then at the same time, I think it's always about how you yourself you handle your work. So you can do things like, for example, I will say it like this, because every individual is very different. So what works for someone might not work for another one. So that's also something we need to understand. So do not go to copy someone's way of working and handling things, because it might not be your way of working and handling things. Because especially when it comes to emotional intelligence, we speak about 4 types of work styles. I mean, there could be individuals who are like go-getters, like, people who have the attitude of, yeah, let's do it. And there are also people who would like to know everyone's opinion and then, take a decision. There are also people who are like, I would say, overthinkers. So overthinking is always not so bad as well, because you have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. And there are also individuals who always give attention to detail. So you have all these different kinds of people and different ways of people working. So therefore, one thing which might work for someone might not work for another one. So generally, I think working on your time, managing your time is very important. So things like, for example, having a to-do list, because don't expect your memory to store everything in your life. So mostly, as much as possible, please do write down. When you scribble things, that actually helps you a lot. And I always tell people, I know we are in the digital era, and we everything is just click away. But when you use your fingers to type on a keypad, and then or else on your computer, we use only about 8 movements, which has very less neural connections. But when you write down, we have about 10,000 movements. That's about millions of neural connections. So this will not go rusting. So therefore, I think it's very important to understand, the more you write, the more you remember. So therefore, maintain something like a to-do list. And at the same time, make sure that you break your work into small segments that will become much more easier. So you will not see it as a humongous task. You'll see like small steps of getting there. Set yourself like very, very clear and very smart and very achievable, like very real, I would say very realistic kind of goals of how you want to do it. And at the same time, I think getting a priority list of working. I mean, you can use so many tools, like, for example, urgent important matrix, or anything that actually works for you. And I think that's something that's very important. And make sure that when you prioritize things, you prioritize time for yourself and all those things as well, because that's absolutely essential. And then, of course, like I would say, try to limit distractions as much as possible. And I think this is something you need to be very conscious of, because, sometimes even at workplace, whenever we get stressed, we mostly develop very bad habits. And that's one of the things, is that digital cocaine. Of course, we love, going through, scrolling through Facebook, because of course you have a massive dopamine flow happening. So you need to be very mindful of these things as well. And at the same time, I think also when it comes to improving your performance at your office, I think you need to be very open to continuous learning as well. So I think platforms like LinkedIn and all these spaces will offer you so many courses and things and learning material. I think that's a very good way to learn. At the same time, you're networking. The more you get connected with people who are maybe representing the same industry or the same field, or even outside of your field. So I always have that curiosity to actually learn as well. So continuous learning and wanting and having the curiosity and the hunger for continuous learning, I think it's always very important. At the same time, I think it's very essential that you time to time acknowledge your strengths as well. I mean, I spoke about, understanding your limitations and improving yourself as well. But at the same time, it's very important that you really acknowledge the good things that you do and the great work that you do, because that's essential. Because we always need that. It's more like a bit of I would say, a very humble ego upliftment that you do. So these are, I would say that at this moment, if I'm to think of certain things, I would say that these are some of the things that you can actually do to genuinely improve your performance in your workplace.
Thank you very much, Rasini. And I really love the points that you addressed. Just want to focus on a few key things, because this area of psychology is something that I really love, Rasini. And there were some very, very beautiful comments and pointers that you worked on. So I just want to address that. The first thing is that people say that people work on perceptions and not on reality. And that was a famous wording of that famous scientist called Schiffman and Carnot. And we all forget this in office. We always think that all of us are real, while we know we forget that we're all humans, and we tend to always work on perceptions and not the reality. Can you explain this concept, Rasini?
It's very nice, like it's wonderfully put out by you as well. I think that what we genuinely need to realize is that we are human beings at the end of the day, and certain things gets to us, and we put our emotions way before we show all the reactions and everything. We take things personally. All these things can happen from us, which can sometimes take that integrity of, like, I would say, an employee, or it might actually take away that professionalism that is expected out of us. And I think it's always very important that we become very mindful of this factor. I think this is something, doctor, that no matter sometimes how much you practice, might just slip away from you. But the thing is, it's always very important that we consciously become very mindful that, look, these kind of things that can happen from us. And sometimes our emotions will take the best of us. So all these things are, I think, highly essential. Let's say, I think, for example, let's say, I think this is going to be even a little tougher with the generations to come as well. Because like our way of handling things and dealing with things, it's always very different. And at the same time, we also need to understand that when you talk about perception is very different from person to person as well. So, and sometimes we might perceive something based on our own thinking, and this perception might be absolutely wrong. Our perception about someone, our perception about the way someone wants us to deliver some work. So all these things, and I think there's a lot of miscommunication that always takes place, because we have got this practice that we are thinking from other person's mindset also, leaving aside our mindset. So it's a continuous struggle. Yeah, doctor.
So, Rasini, if somebody has a different perception about you, how do you correct the perceptions that people have about you? Because this is something that is very prevalent and very common in business life. Some people are very, very focused on performance, and they are really good, but it's just that the people around you don't perceive you like that. Right. So now, how do you change the perception people have about you in office?
Well, I would say there's this one thing that I always practice in my life, doctor, which is actually quite similar to this post that I saw you have shared very recently also. I can't exactly remember that post, but maybe when I mention this, then you might realize what it is. I would say that you're not responsible for the versions of you that exist in other people's mindset. And I think you shared something quite similar regarding life. I can't exactly recall what was that you shared, but I would say I absolutely agree with it, because I would say that that is something like that, because no one absolutely understand anybody or why we are doing what we are doing. So that will always be very subjective, especially when you deal with human mind. Is always very subjective. So that's one thing. And always we need to understand change is a choice. So if you are open to change, if let's say, for example, you have a very negative, let's say, perception about me, and if you're somebody who's open to change, then of course I can work on it and maybe try to change your perception. But what if you're not someone who's open to change? You're not ready and you're very rigid when it comes to your perception. Then, of course, I think it's pointless burning all that petrol and diesel to burn my fuel to actually change your mindset. So I think we also need to be very intelligent in terms of knowing who are the people we can approach and maybe try to change the way they see us, and who are the people who we cannot. So I think for this, you need a greater case study on people as well as human beings as well. So you need to have greater deal of patience to actually understand individuals or try to understand individuals. And at the same time, you need to have that, I would say, absolute acceptance of individuals as well. And when you get into that whole element of acceptance of individual, the way they are, life becomes actually quite easy.
Thanks, Rasini. Rasini, you also mentioned another concept called learning. Now,
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand how do you use this concept learning in a business sense?
Well, I think, like, for example, let's say something we need to understand when you take the topic of business. I think there's continuous change that's happening. So let's say, for example, when if an individual started, or maybe a startup company or else a business, let's say 5 years ago, and now you're starting another business, absolutely different. And maybe now, of course, we have got into a phase that let's say every day it could change. So something we need to understand is, more than the learning we need to do, we have to unlearn a lot of things. So with all that learning we have had, we have very fixed mindsets, doctor, most of the time. So we are so hell-bent on to what we have learned, and we think this is the absolute right way of doing things. But we need to understand that 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if you started a business, your audience was very different. Your customers were very different. Your customer had very limited knowledge. Nowadays, your customers are not like that. Nowadays, your customers will question you. Nowadays, your consumers will ask you questions, or else, will ask you the worst case scenario. So I think in all of these elements, you need to have that mindset that more than learning, there's a lot of unlearning in that process. So you need to be very humble to be in that unlearning situation and mindset as well.
Thanks, Rasini. You talked about motivating people, and I'm actually going through all the concepts of psychology. So we finished perception and learning, and I'm now looking at how is it that what are the techniques you have to motivate people, because you have a very strong psychological background and a grounding. What are the ways that people can motivate people in offices?
Well, I think one thing is, doctor, you need to, it's basically like this, I would say in an office space, there could be, let's say, about 10 to 20% of people who are doing their dream job, or this is what they exactly wanted to do. Then you'll have some individuals who are still confused. Okay, I'm just trying out certain things and I'm just trying to see whether this works for me. And there are another set of individuals who got no choice at all. I mean, this is what I'm left with. So when it comes to those set of individuals, let's say the set of individuals who are doing this, oh my God, like for the sake of doing this, or this is paying my bills or whatever. I think I have actually come across all these different types of individuals who are in workforce. And it's very easy to deal with the first percentage, because they love what they do. So I don't think you need to actually exercise motivation, because every day when you wake up, you don't feel like taking a cow to slaughter. So you love your work. You love walking into your workplace. You love what you do. Like every day, it's like brand new experiences. Then you have the ones who are experimenting. So that's also all right, because they're just trying to figure out what really fits them. So then it's about like trying to help, and it's about helping them to understand what really drives them, and where they really need to focus their life on. And then the toughest group would be the ones who have zero motivation of waking up every day and doing this particular job. So that's the toughest lot. So I think, and also something, doctor, we need to realize is that our human mindset is always very much negativity biased. We always get triggered by negative news. If someone says, you know, my results 2 A's and 1B, our next question would always be, what's the B for? And if we speak about a plane crash, next question we would think is that how many died, or, you know, like that. So it's always very much negativity bias. So maybe in your workplace, there are so many things that you like, or, you know, things that you can improve, but then your focus will always be on, you know, the things that you absolutely dislike. That will be much more. So therefore, it's about actually, again, very individually making people sit down and think about what's good in this job. Or as, let's say, taking from your teammates, looking at your boss, you know, looking at what are the other benefits, looking at what are you actually learning. Let's say I have some people who have said, I have a toxic boss. Then, you know, sometimes we have actually come into the conclusion that, you know, it's sometimes good to have a toxic boss, so you'll know that what kind of a boss you should not be also in life. So it's always about turning these things. And also there's this one thing, I mean, if I have time, I'll tell you. One time I was watching one of Shah Rukh Khan's interviews, and which was done by a law student at Yale University. And there the student tells Shah Rukh and then say that, sir, you know, I absolutely love poetry. I love writing. I can write beautiful things. But the thing is, unfortunately, that will not bring bread and butter to my family. So I write this, you know, legal documents. I do these, I draft these things. I find no pleasure. Can you tell me how I can go about in life? Because I have zero motivation. Then Shah Rukh says, you know, quite some time ago, of course, he says that, you know, my passion is towards, let's say, bringing technology into Hindi film industry. But unfortunately, I don't have a big capital to do so. So therefore, I go and dance at weddings. I go for parties and this and that. I take money. I endorse brands which I don't believe in. I do movies I know they are really bad. Because, you know, at the end of the day, in back of my mind, I know where I want to get to. So this is what I'm using as fuel to actually, you know, fire up my dream. So sometimes in life, we are always not very fortunate to do what we absolutely love. But in that process also, it's something that you can always keep your dream alive in your mindset that I'm doing this thing. I know that I don't enjoy much, but this is actually giving me the fuel to actually do what I really want to do someday in life. So
super, Rasini. My final question, you talk about attitudes. Attitude form. So again, I'm just looking at the basic psychological concepts, basic human concepts. And the reason, Rasini, it's a little bit skewed to hardcore psychology is because, right now there are so many kinds of degrees, MScs on psychology. So I just want to get into the marketplace, the importance of, understanding and studying psychology. So in terms of attitudes, how would you get about in terms of using that in improving your performance at office?
Well, I think then the most important thing is, doctor, like when you work with people, what you need to understand is that there always should be a very custom-made approach to people. Because how you'll be a star in an organization is if you're able to grab that pulse of people. And when you in the process of grabbing a pulse of someone, your attitude really, really matters. So sometimes you need to know where you need to show your attitude, or where you need to really, I would say, go a bit slow in it, or, I would say play the underdog and all those things. So this is actually to do with a lot of intelligence and a lot of, I would say, CQ and a lot of EQ in practice. So when we talk about, I think, attitude, we basically, especially when you deal with the different human beings, these things groom over so many years and years in life, from school, from university, from all these things. So this is the reason why sometimes, when I have sat down for recruitments and all that, and certain people talk, and then you say, yeah, definitely, government university, of course they'll bring these attitudes, these kind of schools, so of course they bring these attitudes. So these things are fixed in our mindset as well. And we need to also realize why that is done the way it is. So, when we talk about knowledge, also we say knowledge, skills, and attitudes. But nowadays, of course, we put attitudes before. So, knowing that your approach for people need to be very custom made, knowing the fact that people come from very different backgrounds, knowing that people come from different education backgrounds, knowing the fact that people have grown up in different areas in Sri Lanka and outside as well, knowing that how your religion or your culture kind of shape up your thinking, and all these things actually collectively contribute to your attitudes. And at the same time, certain values that people have in life as well. So this always comes down to the thing that I mentioned earlier, that acceptance factor. And also, I think we also need to realize that what I think at this moment, Viktor Frankl comes to my mind, and where he says that every human being has the absolute freedom to choose his or her attitude to any given circumstance or situation. So it's always a choice. If you decide to show me attitude, it's a choice. It says a lot about you and very less about me. So I think that's also something we need to realize as well.
Rasini, what are the benefits of studying a subject like psychology? I mean, you're the expert to tell a youngster who is, at office, at middle management, saying, I would like to get a small rub-off of psychology because it can improve my performance. What's your view on this? My final question now.
I think what psychology has done to me is that more than giving support to someone else, I think it has supported me as an individual. I think I have actually developed that way of reading between the lines in most case scenario. It has actually helped me to be in a room where a lot of riff-raffs and arguments happening. Still, I'm able to maintain my cool, and I'm able to silently observe human behavior, which is very funny also. It has helped me to understand that certain people, how desperate they are to seek validation in life. And it has actually helped me to, I would say, be very humbly, very happy about myself as a person as well. And at the same time, it has made me very, very humble as an individual also. And one other thing is that it has helped me to maintain my cool no matter how high and low other people's emotions gets. I mean, my emotional fluctuations will not happen based on someone else's emotional fluctuation. So I think that's the biggest blessing. So to take it, in a very light way and have that absolute acceptance of people has actually made my life way easier and way less stressful. So I think that's what psychology has actually given me.
Thank you so much, Rasini. Ruth, are you around?
Indeed, Rasini, that is like mind-blowing. Simple things that we should, see and understand in our immediate environments, and yet we often miss it because we're too busy being busy. Great conversation, great insights that you have shared, and I'm sure this will be very beneficial to the everyday person, especially those of us who are really trying to, get to wherever we're trying to go, and we lose sight of our surroundings. So thank you so much for being with us and also accepting to be a returning speaker on our webinar. It's truly wonderful to have you with us. And with this, I would, as usual, like to thank our IT team for the technical support extended throughout this session. I'd like to, again, thank Rasini for joining in. And until the next webinar session, I'd like to wish everyone all the very best in whatever you're doing and try to achieve a work-life harmony. Till the next session, take care.